Aloha, everybody. This is Jeanne Russell with Dolphin Touch Wellness Center here in Kauai, Hawaii, and Conscious Conversations with Jeanne Russell. And I am here with Nigel Patterson, and we've been good friends for a while now. I don't even know how long. And he's joining us on the Big Island. And he's written a book and done some fun. Why don't you tell them, I would just mess it. Why don't you tell them about yourself?
All right, aloha everyone. Tell them about myself. I just like being in the consciousness, being an observer, being a witness. I've just had a video series put out where I was labeled the modern mystic. I quite like that, so I think I'll hold that label for now until a new label comes along and sticks, maybe the troublesome mystic or something like that. So it's really just, I like asking many, many why questions. My shtick is more on the shamanic path, and on the shamanic path, about 80% of the work is called the path of awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Why? Don't believe a thing you hear, don't believe a thing you see. Keep on asking why questions, go deep within, find the answers from within. That's 80% of the work. The next 10% would then be grieving the old, which is when we realize we've been lied to, or the world is just a make-believe, or the matrix has been torn down. We need to grieve the old. And then the last 10% is dreaming the new, creating a new reality. So I think we're very much in that process now, where we have been asking many, many why questions, and we're realizing that the world is not as it always seems to have been. We're not quite sure what the world actually is at the moment. Certainly, Zoom is a lot cheaper way of communicating with you than jumping on an airplane and being ripped off by Hawaiian Airlines. So who knows where we're going to go next? We have to dream it up. So are we doing some dreaming together here?
Whatever's possible. Yeah,
Good.
as hard as it is, to watch the news and see all these things falling apart and paradigm shifting and everything else happening, the light that I'm seeing, or the silver lining to all of this, and that I'm excited about, is the total shift in consciousness that the whole planet is going through. And I don't think anyone has been immune unless they've been isolated in some corner of the world, nobody, away from media and everything else. But we are in a position right now that we are shifting the way people see reality. I mean, it's so funny. Just the other day, my husband and I were walking down Poipu, and normally this place is packed with people. And we went through the shopping center. Everything was closed. We're wearing a mask, people walking around in mask. And this is almost like surreal. Like, I can't believe this is really happening. Like,
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because, professionally, I suppose I'm a transpersonal counselor. And in my role as that, I spend weeks and sometimes years getting people to remove their masks.
Yeah.
So we can actually get to the true identity and the true beauty of who the person really is.
Yeah.
It just taken us a month to all slap our masks back on.
Right. Well, I love that because right. Well, I'm wearing my mask right now. But yeah.
But on that one, I was listening to Zach Bush, this wonderful soul from Oahu, a Zoom interview with him. And he came up saying that he believes we're in a crisis of spirituality or spiritual consciousness. And us collectively agreeing to put the masks on is because we have collectively have shame. We do not want to be seen. We do not want to be exposed. So we collectively hide who we are. And until we collectively embrace and heal that, we're going to somehow have a mask. So I thought it's a very beautiful way of saying it. So we have collectively agreed this. We're not victims to wearing masks. We've manifested in our collective consciousness.
Yeah, I would say that we are in a place where just the other day, so I was wearing my mask and I was going down to a FedEx station and I was dropping off a package and the woman's like, oh no, we can't do that today. We have to do it, it'll have to go out on Monday. It's Friday afternoon. And I got in my car and I don't even know, I didn't even complain or I didn't say anything. And I'm like, that package needs to go out today. And because I had the mask on, I really felt muffled, literally muffled. Like I couldn't speak. I couldn't express myself. I was holding back. And I'm like, that's not like me. That's not normally my personality to do something like that. And here I was stuck with this mask on, like shut up, don't say anything. And it was like I've regressed.
So it's almost like we've moved from a fear-based society, and then we've been, as we know, the Chinese medicine, fear feeds and fuels anger and resentment. Then we all became angry about something, and it seems to be rioting going on at the moment. But also, as part of that whole 5-element model, we have this thing called guilt, and it seems like guilt is becoming a big thing now. That I'm becoming guilty. I've been asked, people are trying to make me guilty for who I am, just being a live, well, human, white, and whatever. We're kind of in this guilt space now, which is so interesting. So we have guilt, fear, anger, and they're all playing around. I thought we got over guilt stuff when we decided that this religion stuff is no longer working for us. Formalized religion. We want a spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment. We're all one human family. In fact, we're all one cosmic family. So there's guilt about being white or being black or being green or a Martian or whatever. I've done that work. I did that work years ago. But that's kind of, I must mask myself and be guilty for going out there in case I'm going to kill someone.
Right. Well, you're thinking it's going to be easy for someone to rob a bank,
Exactly.
They'll have a mask. I tell you not. I was in.
So the guy who walks in without his mask, he's the robber.
He's breaking the rules. And it was like that guy. I was in. I was walking into an ABC store, and literally this guy had this ski mask on and this hood and these glasses, and I'm like, I was almost afraid to walk in there. I was like, is this guy robbing the place? Or
So what does wearing a mask mean to you? Not so much from a law-abiding point of view. I'm thinking more from a psycho-spiritual point of view.
Well, what I thought was interesting? So the mask is starting to come off here. We could walk around and, there's, people, it's a little less, where you have to have a mask. Before we couldn't even walk on the bike path without our mask on and all of that. We couldn't go to the beach without a mask. And you know what I realized? I realized that I missed seeing people's smiles. Because you can't see the smile under the mask and you're seeing all these issues. And it was like, oh my God, I'm seeing people smiling again. I mean, it was giving me hope to see people's faces, to see their smiles, to see them. They actually said hello, they weren't like, whoa, 6 feet away. It was very pleasant. And I realized how much I missed that and how much I took it for granted of people sharing and having their smile and just a general greeting. Usually when we pass somebody out, we'll usually smile or say hello or nod our head, which wasn't happening with the mask on. I mean, that's one thing I noticed. I don't know if I fully answered your question, but what did you find with the mask? Or not mask?
I felt repressed.
Yeah.
Spiritually and energetically repressed. I felt that I was accepting the repression over me by others.
Right.
I had to process that myself personally and saying that, you know, the art of stalking, Castaneda's work, is you just become the impeccable chameleon, just do what you're expected to do without actually buying into the whole pantomime behind it. And I had to go through that. So for me, it was part of an inner healing process to have to slap this mask on. To start with, I was angry. But then I thought, well, you know, it's no skin off my nose. If it makes people feel safe, people who follow me know that I think it's a fear-based control mechanism that we've been under. But if it makes them feel better to wear it, it makes them feel better as I wear it, that's okay. But it doesn't really matter. So I've had to learn to have the inner smile, but also sometimes, you know, I can actually pull faces and stick my tongue out. People can't see me do that when I walk past. Such fun.
On the other side of that, yeah, it was kind of nice to be anonymous, you know, like I'm walking around. But then people like be like, hey, Jeannie, and like, oh, God, they could still see me.
But you have to change your color mask there. You can't wear the same mask the whole time. People get to recognize you by your color mask.
I'm going to have to put the hat, the mask, the glasses. Yeah, I mean, you know, you think it's funny. It's like that idea of the elephant in the room with the little towel over it. You know, it thinks no one can see it, but you know, it's.
So why are we having this conversation about masks? I find a curious one.
Well,
what is triggering that question?
I think it's in our consciousness, and it's a reflection of what's in our world. I mean, I never thought I'd be talking about masks at this point, but you know, it's a metaphor for so many things. And part of what I've seen of this 2020 thing that's going on right now is we're rebooting. It's a reboot.
Yeah. So I just want to just bring up on that. So what brought up for me on that is I spent the first 35 years of my life wearing a mask. Being a gay man and being in the closet for 35 years, I wore that mask. So for me, and it took many years of deep processing, many years of tears, many years of therapy to be authentic with who I am and to be okay with that. Now, to be asked to go back and hide my authenticity once again, that's how it felt to me. People may say, oh, just get over it, you know, no big deal. That's fine. But that's how it felt to me. So for me, it was a personal journey, remasking myself and saying, why do I have to once again hide who I am to make others feel comfortable? Because staying in the closet, especially from a South African background, staying in the closet made others feel uncomfortable. Same made them feel comfortable. So suddenly I have to make others feel comfortable again by putting this mask back on. Why am I back in this bizarre world where my duty is to make others feel comfortable? What about my own sovereignty in all of this? And how have I given away my sovereignty so quickly when it took me about 5 years of deep, intensive work to heal from being inauthentic all those years? So for me, it was a very personal thing from that point of view. I'm not sure if other people who are going to watch this or listen to this would have a similar journey, which this may just bring things up for them as well. I don't know. Because, you know, being human means that we come here to resolve stuff as part of the human experience.
Exactly.
And we go through a lot of that healing process. Now, to suddenly say I have to now be hidden from my stuff again, that's what it did for me. So yeah, anyway, I just asked that question, what it takes for you.
What is your current mask status?
Sorry, the question again?
What is your current mask state? What do you do with your mask now? How do you
I wear it in my head like a little book.
Love that.
Because it's got these strings and I tie them in a little bow underneath my chin.
Right.
Because places just say you must wear a mask. They don't say how you must wear the mask.
Right. True that.
So, You know, I'm not ashamed of my hair, but grey, but and I don't mind. So you can see enough of it around the mask. It's okay.
Right. Yeah,
So
I would say very similar. I mean, I didn't come out of the closet, but I did feel confined. Now, I grew up in a world where, as a child, it was like kids are to be seen and not heard. And we heard this over and over and over again. So it was like, okay, I'm being seen, but you know, I felt like my throat chakra was shut down. Literally, like you know, especially in that case, or even when you're talking to people who have masks on, it's like, what are you saying? Huh? I can't quite hear you.
yeah, and so when you're seen and not heard, if you became heard in those days, what would have happened? If you had to voice your
Down. I mean, especially I'm sure me, because I was such a out of the box thinker, and so and to this day more of a, you know, 5D thinker than my 3D family. Yeah, they wouldn't understand or
would,
don't
would,
make
would, you, would you have been punished for speaking up?
yes.
Okay, and in that punishment, there's fear, the fear of punishment.
Right.
So we're going to fear again.
And judge.
It's the fear-based control and judgment, fear and judgment, all that fear-based control, judgment. So for me, putting the mask back on was the fear of being outed, fear of being judged, fear of being seen by others. I had the same British upbringing. Little children, little boys should be seen and not heard. So that's part of that. So yeah, so that's brought all that up again. So I personally took a lot of this as a learning experience for me, as a healing experience, to actually have to process that. So for about a month or so, I went into my own deep inner work around this. I said, okay, what is going on here? Why have I been part of the collective dream to have to put the mask back on? And how do I take responsibility for being part of that dream? And what's a gift in that dream for me?
Yes.
And I have to go through some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think with anything we're going through, there's always pearls of wisdom that can be extracted from that, and even negative experiences. And that brought up things for me as well. And I'm glad I had that negative experience, because it helped me to realize what the mask was doing. And then also, I kind of felt like you did, in the sense, like how quickly I was controlled into or bought into this idea. Oh yeah, we should, you know, for other people, to make other people feel safe.
Well, you said you went to FedEx. You went to FedEx and just shut you down and said, bye-bye, off you go, come back on Monday.
Right.
And you said in the past, you wouldn't have been shut down so quickly. So the little girl would have been shut down by her parents.
Yes, yeah, it really brought all of that up. And I'm like, wait a minute, how did I regress so quickly?
Yeah.
Just, yeah, and like you said, you know, we've been doing all this work for all this time, and now here we are back, you know, gone backwards in my evolution.
But isn't it interesting, the only place we can be unmasked is in the digital world?
Say again?
The only place we can be unmasked is in the digital world, like on Zoom here. We don't have to wear a mask, but in the physical world, we have to be masked.
Well, I don't have to be masked. I mean, if I so that's the rebel in me. You know, I mean, I'm walking around without a mask. If I go into a shop, you know, to me, it's like, oh, I'm putting on you know, oh, okay, I got to put on my attire, my, you know, my mask. Like, oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
A thing that you think is going to save you, it's 10-cent mask that you're wearing is going to, yeah. So it's, yeah, just to play the game. Oh, this is the way this game is played. When I walk into, but you know, and then the rules will change again. You know, it's constantly changing.
Right, if I could have paid 10 cents going back 30 years ago or 25 years ago, if I could have paid 10 cents and stepped out the closet just for 10 cents, I would have done that.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of, we've allowed ourselves, for some reason, we believe that 10 cents makes us better now or safe now.
Yeah. You know, what I'd like to talk to you about from your perspective, if you're open to it. I mean, of course, we have this thing, Black Lives Matter right now, and it's like all over and everything else. But, you know, it's like all lives matter. It's like our life, my life, your, you know, and it's creating that separation. But, you know, and then what do you feel from a gay man's point of view? Like gay lives matter, you know, how many people have talked about that? Or, you know, gay people have been repressed and suppressed and held back in so many ways. And
yes, all lives matter. However, but in that is also a bit of a cop-out. I'm going to go back up one here. In the US, the only people who are American, called Americans, are whites. Everyone else is either Black American, Native American, Chinese American, Asian American, Filipino American, Hispanic American, Latino American, whatever it might be. Everyone is labeled except whites. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a, wow, you know, me being an immigrant, I'm very sensitive to this. I say, oh, so I thought we're all Americans. So yes, all lives matter. It's kind of, to me, it's a very subtle thing going on here. However, unless you call out, guess what? The Latino is as much of American as you are an American. The Black American is just as much as a white American. All lives matter, but we have to call it out for being somehow subtly, it's different. And until such time there's equality at all levels, it's going to always be different. So in the gay movement, the LGBT movement, the movement did not ask for any special rights, just asked for equal rights. And whilst the gay movement has basically got equal rights, and as of yesterday, interestingly enough, the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, on a 6-3 judgment, overturned the administration's repeal of the Obama era's executive order, which said that you could not fire someone based on grounds of sexual orientation or gender assignment. That was overturned about 2 years ago. It went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, that sexual orientation forms part of sexual identity or sexuality. They're one and the same. You cannot discriminate on that. So that fight still, you know, for it to be actually happening still to this day, after the so-called gay rights movement so long ago, it still sits there. So all lives matter, gay lives matter, white lives matter, Black lives matter. But where the injustice is at the moment, or the people who are calling out the injustice, is the Black community. And I think it's important that we, as all other communities, recognize and acknowledge at the moment they're the ones that are hurting. And we give them permission to hurt. We give them permission to be heard so the hurting can heal. We give them permission to go through that healing process. I think I have a struggle with the looting and violence and the thuggery that's going on. To me, that's an issue. But those initial intention and those who are going through the peaceful mass awareness process. Remember I said on the shamanic path, 80% is awareness, 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 awareness. Mm-hmm. What's happening, I think at the moment, we're having this huge awareness being injected into our consciousness at the moment. Those of us who are not Black do not know what it means to be Black. Those who are straight do not know what it means to be a gay man. And you say, but you know, all gays have the same rights, it's not a problem. Until someone has a snarky comment, then it is a problem. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I don't say to my friends or to you, for example, oh, you know, Jeannie, last night I had dinner with a straight couple. I'd say, oh, last night I had dinner with a couple and we discussed this and that. However, people say to me, oh, Nigel, you know, last time we had dinner with this other gay couple and they shared this information. That's how that subtlety is. In other words, that discrimination still sits there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that irritates me, because to me, you're creating a separation. It's creating the separation: black, white, purple, green, yellow. You know, we're all people, we're all human, we're all on this planet, we're all on this crazy journey together. And you know, there's no sense. That's an old paradigm of separating and creating this community of gay, or community of black, or community of Hispanic, or community, you know. And, you know, it was funny when this came out, because I looked at my friends, and my daughter and I were talking, and it's like, I have so many friends that are black, but I don't even think about that. I don't even think of them as, oh, black friends, or,
So Jeannie, on that one, I want to say, because I'm not sure how many people are watching this who are not from Hawaii, that you and I living in Hawaii have this beautiful advantage in there is no single dominant population group in Hawaii. So the largest population group in Hawaii is the Anglo-Saxon whites, which are only 36%. Then is of Asian descent, or like Filipino, Japanese, Chinese, and so on, I think is 32%. People of mixed Hawaiian heritage, I think is something like 12 or 18%, I can't remember. And pure blood Hawaiians only like 2%. So there's no single dominant group. And it's actually beautiful. And I look forward to that happening around the world. So therefore we, by a very nature, we can choose to be tribal if we want to, but the society can't support that because there's no single major group to dominate everyone else. And I think the aloha spirit feeds into this, yeah, and I think it's very beautiful. So that's part of the magic of being here. And I'm glad we are here at the moment for that reason, because there is that love and that acceptance and that tolerance which happens here. But I don't think that's universal, especially not in the mainland at the moment.
Yeah, I feel really blessed to be here, and I'm really blessed that my kids are here right now during this crazy time, to be honest. But yeah, you know, my daughter even said, you know, she grew up with discrimination for being white as a kid in certain way. You know, you go to school and you know, or you go to a playground and, you know, you get discriminated against. And I know that's probably hard for people to imagine, but we experience that here in Hawaii because, yeah, it is. There is no real dominant, you know, what the Anglo-Saxon is not the dominant race here. We have so many Japanese and Filipino and Hawaiian and mix, and who's local and who's not, and whatever, you know, it's like, and we've had to learn, and my kids and my family, you know, we've had to learn how to all get along because we're all here together, and how to create and how to make, and you know, some.
Whereas I was raised based in South Africa. I wasn't born there, but I was raised there, where I think the whites voted something like 8%. And under apartheid, they're the only ones who had the vote. So 8% of the population controlled the other 92% under institutionalized discrimination. And I will say this, growing up there, and if that's one's paradigm, I knew no different. So looking back, of course, in hindsight, one recognizes that's completely wrong. Yeah. But at the time growing up, one doesn't actually recognize it's wrong. That's all you know. So when I see these kids being raised, I don't care what color they are, to despise, hate, discriminate, judge, whether it be on religious grounds, on gender grounds, on racial grounds, on sexual orientation grounds, wherever they are raised by their parents, they say the sins of the father become the sins of the son. They don't know any different, those kids, because no one has said to them, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And I have to be so careful in the work I do personally and with my clients is not to judge people for having these views, because they actually don't know different.
Right. And you know, that's the thing, right? So we are remaining neutral, and everybody's on their spiritual path, and everybody has their own place on their path. And and the teachings of the Dolphin, which you know I'm very connected to, and everything else has been that, you know, unconditional love, and unconditional love is a place where you don't judge people for where they are, you know, for, you know, maybe their education background, or their where they are in their spiritual path, or what they know about chakras, or different things that, you know, we're more in tune with or connected with. It's like everybody's on their journey, and it's all perfect for each person. Everything is unfolding just as it should. And as we're unfolding our journey, and part of our challenge in this is not to judge. And, you know, we may not have all the facts, and that's the problem with Facebook and the media and everything else, and why that's all breaking down, which is a good thing. And it's because, you know, we don't, you know, we're seeing it from a certain angle, but we're not seeing the other side, or we're not seeing.
Okay. So on that, when you stop judging, what replaces that?
Peace. And, you know, within myself, just peace and love just emanates. And like, when you stop this place of judgment, and you can, sometimes you do kind of have to lower yourself to their level, or whatever it is, if you want to. It's not the best terminology, but meet people where they're at. Not,
well,
so many people I know are expecting like these high, you know, it's like, maybe, you know, with lovers, with partners, with children, you know, we expect them to be a certain way. We expect them to act, to know these things, or to act a certain way, or whatever it is. And if we just can let all that go and say, you know, this is where they're at. This is where they're at in their journey, in their path, and we accept it, and we love them anyway. You know, we emanate love, and we, you know, and if they're in pain, of course, you know, we try to help them any way we can. But, you know, just accepting and loving, and taking people for face value where they're at.
So that reminds me why I think the golden rule's a load of rubbish. You know, the golden rule of treat others as you'd like to be treated? I think it's a load of rubbish. Why do I say that? I think we have the platinum rule. As we know, platinum's more valuable than gold.
Right.
Platinum rule says treat others as they would like to be treated.
Right.
Why on earth should I treat you or anyone else the way I would like to be treated? That's incredibly selfish of me, expecting you to come to where I am.
Yeah.
Let me rather find out where you are. But how can I treat you as you would like to be treated unless you tell me how you'd like to be treated? And why should you tell me how you'd like to be treated unless you respect me?
Correct.
And how can you respect me unless you trust me? So how do we get back that thing called trust? How do we build trust in dialogue, trust in community, trust in societies, trust in government, trust in everything, so I can treat you the way you would like to be treated?
We're at this place where everything's down, you know? I mean, everything, our view of government, our view of the police, our view of business, our view of family, you know, everything is breaking down, and it's terrible. It sounds, I'm celebrating, because I know that we're going to rebuild something that's even better.
So okay, as you know, I was raised in South Africa, and we had to go through the collapse of apartheid, and we had this amazing man called Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who co-founded, or basically is a founder of the TRC, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where it was a very formal process in, I'm not sure it's Parliament House, but it looks like Parliament House. So it's very formal, very somber, where the victims of this brutality from the police, the white police under apartheid, they would confront their perpetrators of that violence. So these big blokes would come in, these policemen, and they had a choice. They could either ask for forgiveness from the victims or the victims' families when the child, they said the one has been killed, the victims' families, and ask for forgiveness, or they could go to jail. That was their choice.
Wow.
And in that, the healing was absolutely extraordinary. It was like imposed Ho'oponopono almost, where these big burly men would actually go down and ask for forgiveness to these beautiful black women who'd lost a son from that cop's gun. And she would say, "Stand up, my son," and give him a big hug and say, "I forgive you." And he would just burst into tears, break down, and the healing was instantaneous and beautiful.
Wow.
Absolutely beautiful. But the environment was set for that. And that was part of what they set up. The whole Rainbow Nation started around that. And I think, how can we do something like that in the healing that's required now? How can we get people to go into the place of forgiveness and the place of saying, "I'm sorry," or asking for forgiveness? And that was incredibly healing. And being in that country during that period was a massive transformation and transition. Was extraordinary time to be there when Mandela was president. But like with everything else, things change. And what I've learned through that process is that judgment and discrimination is quite hideous. That we use the word discrimination very loosely in our lexicon. We say, "Oh, I discriminate, that's blue and that's green," or something. Because discrimination, where I've been brought up, is a loaded word. Apartheid means discrimination, legalized discrimination, separateness. So I have learned, and I give talks about this, is how do we instead move from a place of judgment, discrimination, into a place of deep curiosity and discernment. I will never be a woman. I'll never be a straight black man. It's not going to happen. It's not my soul journey. My soul journey is to be who I am. So I'm going to discern that you are different to me, not discriminate, but discern and say, "Tell me about that experience. What does it mean to be a woman in this world, a white woman in your case? What does it mean to be a black man in your world? How do we go into those deep conversations? How do we get that place of discernment, of deep curiosity, and get out of this judgment?" And so that's why I really promote that sense of discernment. I don't become colorblind, because what I'm doing myself an injustice, and certainly the other person, because the platinum rule says treat them as they would like to be treated. Okay, so how would you like to be treated? I'd like to be honored for where I am as a black man or as a gay man, whatever it is. Okay, what does that mean? And have the courage to say, "Let me have that conversation. Let me own up to that conversation. Let me own up to your hurt. And how can we have this conversation?" So that's been a very important part of my own healing in the last 30 years. And what I'm seeing we're going through in this country at the moment, that same healing is needed on a national level.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And it's not gonna be healed by creating this separation of black, white, purple.
So what we're doing, we're healing the separation. We have to honor and we have to acknowledge the separation has happened over decades.
Yes.
It's there. We can't say, "Oh, it wasn't my generation's problem. I don't buy into that." No, it's there. I can't hide that. I have to honor that. There is separation. What can I do, though, to help close and heal that separation so we come back up to the one where we're all one with God? I am the totality of who you are too. How do we do that healing process from separation? And that's what my model in my book's about, the Path to Freedom model. How do we go from separation to unity?
Yeah, and I would say the path there is through education, is through awareness, is through honest discussions, honest openings and feelings, and seeing, like I said, all sides of where people are and who they are, and seeing the beauty in each and every person, and
Yeah,
recognizing that and connecting with that.
absolutely. And I think it all starts with taking personal responsibility for where I am. If I'm in denial of where I am, I can't possibly heal, because what I'll be doing is casting blame elsewhere and playing the victim card. So I take responsibility where I am and then own that. And how I take responsibility where I am is saying, I have chosen this as my soul journey, my soul path. Preconception, I made this decision to come along through those two parents, being born as a white man, being born sexual orientation, same-sex attraction, being born in East Africa, and so on, as my soul journey, because that's going to be my greatest soul growth is going to come from this package.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go look for mum and dad, get conceived, and here we come. At that point, I can't suddenly turn around and say, I don't think it's going to work for me this time around. I want out of here. I'm not stuck in this journey. But I think those choices are made preconception as what's the best for our soul growth. And that's what helps me honor every single human being there is, that they've made those choices as well. And how can I possibly expect you to be the same as me? How can I possibly expect the golden rule for you to respect me? That, so you know what I mean?
Right. So I would say that it's not that we really need to change anything outside ourselves.
We know that's impossible.
It's really the journey within.
Yeah, exactly.
Impossible. And it's the journey within that if we can shift, and part of it, just like with that mask that I was saying, part of it is, and this is, I think, what's going on right now, part of it is the recognition that it's there. It's kind of like, in apartheid, I'm sure it was like white people didn't even realize they were being discriminated against black, like, what are you talking about? I'm not discriminating. He's a slave and he's getting paid. What do you mean? And it's like, part of the first step is the conscious awareness. And even in all of ourselves, we discriminate in some way against something in other people, whether
and something within ourselves too. Homophobia, internalized homophobia, is the single biggest cause of suicides in the youth today. So young people who are in the closet are the highest risk suicide. That's called internalized homophobia.
It's
true. So we discriminate against ourselves.
Right.
And because we're told it's wrong to be this person or that person or that person, or good girls don't do this, or little boys must be seen and not heard, and so on. And we have this internal judgment, we have that internal hate, and we have to heal from that. Yeah. Otherwise, that comes out as discrimination against others.
Right, and it all starts with ourselves in the sense that we discriminate against people who, envy, people who have things that we don't have, or, we have this thing going on, or we're judging ourselves, or someone is more attractive than somebody else, and so we're putting ourselves down. It's like all this discrimination that's happening, that we're hurting ourselves as we compare ourselves to others. And if we stop doing that.
Great point there. Because we're hurting ourselves. Well, we're hurting ourselves instead of saying, I am going to take ownership for the way I'm hurting myself and for the pain I'm feeling. It's too difficult to go into that place and process and heal from that. I am going to instead project that outwards and hurt someone else, which reflects the hurt I'm carrying within me.
Yes, absolutely. And that's an easier way. Like, let's say somebody has a beautiful home or a nice car or a successful business, and they'll be like, oh, look at that guy, or look at him, and people, that's where gossip happens. That's where people talk story, or against others and all that. But really the issue is within themselves, like, oh, you have a problem with seeing someone else being successful because you're not as successful as that person, and you're feeling this sense of lack within yourself where you need to point the finger at somebody else who is having what you would like to have. That's just an example.
Nice rant. And now I say the challenge here is, instead of using the you word, use the I word.
Yes, right. Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would say the way to heal this, see, we solve the problems of the world right here, Nigel. The way to heal this is to heal ourselves, is for us all to stop discriminating in ourselves and embrace the beauty and the differences that we all are, that we all have within ourselves. And our, I love the fact that, I'm different than you. And I would hate if there was a whole world of genies that looked all the same walking around the planet,
Well, I couldn't stand the competition.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
anything else you want to, I want to wrap this up. Anything you want to share, tell people about how to contact you? And I'd love for people to know. And,
I'd like to wrap this up saying we are at an extraordinary crossroads at the moment, I think, in our evolutionary history.
Yeah.
And if we can honor and own that, and really own it, and really celebrate in it, and not be afraid of it, because we have stepped into the unknown, and it can be very uncomfortable, or it can be liberating. And people are going through that transition into being okay in the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen, and being okay with it, because somehow things seem to be working out. So in terms of where I can support people personally, is if those people who are struggling, going from their known world, especially if it's busy collapsing and not serving them anymore, and how to survive and navigate the unknown. Because in the unknown, in that stillness, the paradox is that we get to know ourselves, and that's all that matters, is to get to know and integrate and fall in love with the inner beauty of who we are. Because when we do that, we recognize there is no outside of the us. You, Jeanne, are but a reflection of who I am. How I see you is how I see an aspect of myself. So when you were brave enough to put that wonderful photograph of you in that little slinky outfit up there, I said, yes, love it. Because that's how I see you. I always have seen you like that. So that's the reflection of Jeanne in my consciousness. And how do we get people to own those beautiful reflections within themselves as well?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful practice.
Yeah, so it's my website anyway, is nigelbpatterson.com. So put the B in there, nigelbpatterson.com. There's stuff in there.
And you're on Facebook and...
Yeah, Facebook I'm finding a bit not terribly useful at the moment. It's become a bit too divisive for the work I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. So I think the work you and I are doing, Jeanne, is depth work. It's not meme-based work. And, a meme is fine if you want people to believe and go along with your opinion. But depth work, you can't put that in a meme.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so, we might be doing something together, so stay tuned.
Yes, I think between your consciousness and your beautiful energy and the work I've done, I think together we can actually offer quite a lot for people who want to go into that space of discovering and celebrating their uniqueness and the vast diversity that we are, that makes up the human race, the human planet. If we can celebrate that diversity and embrace it and treat others as the way they would like to be treated, this place will be an amazing place.
Yeah, well, that's how we're going to shift the planet, you see? So we just shift our world, and then...
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Nigel, on Conscious Conversations, Jeanne Russell and Nigel Patterson being here today from the Big Island. We will have to do a retreat when things open up again on the island. And
We'll have to retreat when we stop being in retreat.
right. Take off our masks.
Exactly. We can all celebrate our beautiful individual smiles, right, without any shame attached to it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks
Right.
again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you and stay well.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Yeah.